Mike Jarek here, just hanging around for Sci-Fi Buzz. Hope you will too. Help me.
This week, we obsess on special effects with the folks behind the visual wizardry of TV's Earth 2. And a visit to an exhibit that goes behind the scenes of Hollywood effects magic. Then we'll meet the stars and creator of the new high-tech TV series VR5. And buzz with the movie's master of slice and dice, Tobe Hooper.
Sally, I hear something. Stop! Stop!
Hey buzzers, I really got out on a ledge for this show. Help me! Hello!
Hey, just kidding. Remember a couple weeks ago when we were out in New Jersey at the Liberty Science Center, that science museum? Well, now we're in Los Angeles at the California Museum of Science and Industry. And I've said it before, buzzers, and I'll say it again, science museums are not just for children. Although most of us who are into science fiction, fantasy, and horror are more like children than the average adult population. This is an exhibit called Special Effects 2, developed by the California Museum of Science and Industry. And it really shows how the marriage of artistry, technology, and science can make for some wonderful movie effects. And now this exhibit will be here for the next couple of weeks in Los Angeles. Then it goes on a tour for 5 years. It's a national tour, and I'll tell you where you can see it a little bit later on the program. We get to play with some of the special effects tonight on Sci-Fi Buzz. But first, I want to take you just down the road to Hollywood, California, where they make wonderful movie special effects every day at a company called DreamQuest.
With an explosion of sci-fi fare bombarding the boob tube these days, it helps to have an edge on the competition. Take Earth 2, for instance. NBC's sci-fi spectacle set on a distant alien world. The show is attempting to distance itself from the pack by loading up on visual effects that are as futuristic as they are realistic. DreamQuest, one of Hollywood's top optical effects houses, was recruited for the job. The company produced the imagery for big feature films like The Abyss and Total Recall. So, downsizing for the small screen was a challenge for visual effects supervisors Tim Landry and Mike Shea.
The people at Amblin who were producing Earth 2 wanted to have something more like a feature quality look, and we felt miniatures would, mixing that with the digital world would be the best solution to keep that quality up.
This is a transitional period in the effects industry. Many traditional approaches are being phased out in favor of cutting-edge digital techniques. But there are exceptions.
DreamQuest has always been sort of a mixed bag kind of company. We try to use the best tools for the job at any given scene. And the rule is whatever gets the image on the screen, that's the way to go.
Don't go offline!
The pilot of Earth 2 offers an ideal example of how traditional and digital methods can be combined for maximum effect. Exterior shots of an elaborate space station, ultimately destroyed in the first episode, combined old-fashioned miniatures with digital matte paintings and 3D computer graphics, or CGI.
That space station for Earth 2 is a huge model. It was repetitive, so you kind of thought, well, maybe CGI would have been a good way to do this. The fact is, the textures and the scale and the immensity of it all would have been.
The computer would have choked.
Yeah, it would have choked, and so it was still faster and more, cost-effective to do it as a miniature. And until the computer can get to that level, I see an application for both techniques.
DreamQuest has attempted to give Earth 2 a film quality look desired by the producers. But given the assembly line nature of episodic television, the show is burdened with time and budget constraints that necessitate constant ingenuity.
It's one of the cost-saving ways we produced the miniatures for the pilot was I just finished 3 space movies in a row, and we happened to have a lot of space stuff, and so the art director came down and she went over it with David Goldberg, our model supervisor, and they found parts and created the environment out of to some extent, the existing parts we already had.
Come on!
Since the pilot, the show has been grounded on an arid planet bearing a remarkable likeness to the New Mexico desert. So, with no further need for spaceships, spaceports, and space stations, those outmoded miniatures have given way to virtual reality visuals.
The type of material that they require from that point from the pilot forward has changed significantly. There's a lot of readout screens and things that lend themselves more to the digital world.
The traditional tricks of the trade will probably be around in some form as long as sentimental guys like Mike Shea can keep a toehold on the business. But it seems the digital revolution could prove overwhelming in the long run.
I can hear people talking behind me saying it's, you know, what dinosaurs we all are, but I know, as anybody who does sticks, you know, looks at electronics, things get faster, things get cheaper. The fact is, it's going to get easier to do it that way. And eventually, maybe I'll be retired in the Bahamas by then, so it won't matter.
Here are some of the models from films that are contributors to the Special Effects 2 exhibit. Recognize this one from The Abyss? Come on over here. This is the AT-AT Imperial Walker from The Empire Strikes Back. Of course, the film companies shoot close-ups of these models to make them look life-size when you see them on the big silver screen. A number of things are accomplished. Save a lot of money for the film company. Can you imagine the expense of trying to build that, you know, life-size? It'd be very expensive. Plus, you can blow them all up, like they did to the space station on the first episode of Earth 2. Now, speaking of life-size, models like Monica here are created when objects really don't exist in real life, or they're not available, or maybe they're too dangerous to put with live animals or live humans. And oh yes, the age-old green screen technique, you know, where they photograph background scenes separately and then insert them in the place of the green screen, are still widely used throughout Hollywood. Hi-ho, Dino, let's go. Ooh, I about broke his head. We'll be right back with more after this.
After this disconnect, the Sultan of Splatter, Tobe Hooper, and a trip to the cutting edge. Masterminded by director Tobe Hooper, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre and its famous fiend Leatherface have become a horror legend. And while Texas Chainsaw Massacre has undoubtedly etched Hooper a spot in horror history, the director's other fright films bear a look as well. In fact, it seems that Hooper has always had an eye for the macabre.
I made my first film, I shot my first footage when I was 3 years old, and made a little film about my cousins being run over by a train.
Now in 1995, Hooper is back wreaking havoc on the big screen with the new horror thriller, The Mangler.
It's about a laundry machine that has a demon in it. The machine has a way of finding what it needs. And on this particular day, it has an agenda. It is the day set in its history for something to happen.
Since the release of Texas Chainsaw Massacre in 1974, Hooper has amassed quite the horror film resume. And in 1986, he crossed over into the sci-fi genre with a remake of one of his favorite films, Invaders from Mars.
It's okay, we're the police. We're here to help.
I loved Invaders from Mars. I loved the relentless quality, the relentless drive that it had. I mean, it's a young person on a treadmill, you know, running in slow motion. It tapped into things that were in the dreams.
Life Force, the story of vampires from outer space invading London, put a fun twist on the blood-sucking creature legend. Still, the film was met with lukewarm response from both audiences and critics when it was released in 1985. Hooper blames the studio, who thought his original cut was too long, for destroying his vision.
The first 5 or 6 minutes was cut out, and that was the springboard in which to view and reference the film. You weren't watching it in the reference or in the frame that was intended.
In 1982, Hooper teamed up with Steven Spielberg to create one of the most frightening ghost stories of all time, Poltergeist. While Stephen King was originally pegged to write the Poltergeist screenplay, only to drop out later, it was Spielberg himself who actually ended up writing most of the script. And there have been the constant rumors over the years that Spielberg ended up directing most of Poltergeist as well.
No, that's false. Steven is a very strong producer. I would say like David O. Zelazny, you know, and Steven ended up writing the screenplay and would send blue pages, pink pages, and I would have the opportunity to reshoot a scene if I wanted to, or if he wanted me to, because he's a very strong producer with very specific opinions, and it was my first big special effects film.
Despite Hooper's great body of work, the one film that even he admits he'll probably be remembered for is Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And while that film was inspired by a true story, the idea of the chainsaw was all Hooper's.
Around holiday season, I was in a department store, and I hate holiday shopping, and the people were crowding in and such, and I was in the hardware department and looked down and I saw a rack of chainsaws displayed, and it just occurred to me how to get out of this crowd.
With films like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and now The Mangler, you can safely bet that director Tobe Hooper is one horror master who has definitely made the cut. This week on Cutting Edge, if this looks like a normal, everyday house, look again. This is the house of the future. Built by GE, the purpose of this living laboratory is to peek into tomorrow, to find out what the future might hold in home construction. And you're not going to believe what's ahead. Take, for instance, these floors. They may look like stone, but you're actually walking on recycled car parts and housings from business machines. Turns out they produce a wear-resistant, lightweight, environmentally friendly alternative to traditional floors. Also, check out the plumbing. This sink with flexible tubing and plumbing cassettes simply clips into the wall. No need to call a plumber to install it. Even I could do it in less than an hour. And there are some great toys in this house as well. With more than 50 partner companies contributing products and expertise, the latest in technology is represented here. There's a central computer which serves as a home office, but also runs the electricity, telephone, and data and security system in the house. That gives you more time for pleasure, like throwing a party on a whim.
Evening party.
Thanks to the voice-activated party mode.
The evening party lighting mood is now set.
There's also a touch-control kitchen computer. It can do everything from printing a photograph of who's at the door to filling the upstairs bath.
The bath is now filling.
So even if the idea of this high-tech house leaves you cold, you can take comfort in a bath that is always ready when you are. The first TV series about virtual reality. And American New Wave author Roger Zelazny. Next.
Hey Buzzers, I'm with Andy Dunn, who did most of the research here at Special Effects 2, this great exhibit, even though you did have a lot of help from some of Hollywood's heavy hitters, huh?
Yeah, we sure did. People like Boss Films, Industrial Light and Magic, Jim Henson's Creature Shop, Michael Westmore.
Boy, a lot of talent there. Yeah. We're looking at something called CGI. I know what that is, folks. It's computer-generated imagery. Tell me how it works.
Well, we're going to look at one aspect of CGI here. It's called surface mapping. Once you've got a wireframe, sort of a computer model built, you can select a surface to apply to that and then render it. We're going to select a series of different textures here.
Oh my God.
You can see automatically they appear on our shape.
That's great. Look at that. Now, what movies might I have seen this in?
Quite a few of the most popular ones recently. The Abyss, Terminator 2, Jurassic Park was a big one.
You know, Fox is going to be premiering a new series very soon. It's going to be heavy with special effects called VR5.
The airwaves are full of shows about doctors, cops, and lawyers. But John Sackett Young, the man behind the offbeat drama series China Beach, is back with yet another unconventional offering, VR5.
Whoa! Whoa! What happened?
Whoa!
What did I do?
Everyone in television is always looking to kind of do the same thing that just did well. So when you step outside of that mold, you're always taking a chance, and it's a little harder. You know, the hill's a little steeper.
The show's title, VR5, refers to a level of virtual reality that goes beyond anything that exists today.
It's very dark. It's very dark, yeah.
The lead character, played by Laurie Singer, utilizes her homebrew computer system to solve problems that require more than conventional means.
It's a very troubled character, and at the same time she's empowered when she steps into virtual reality. And I think John Sacred Young's idea of playing with that mix is just fascinating, and it's always something that's just, you know, thrilling to read when you each time you see where her unconscious is going to take her. It's always fun. We're in virtual reality. What? It's something I can do with my computer.
Though Computer 101 was never offered when she was in school, seasoned actress and series co-star Louise Fletcher was prepared for the show's ultra-techno plotline.
I was in the first movie made about virtual reality, which was Brainstorm, back in 1980, before they even had a name for virtual reality.
Sacred Young says the show will have goggles and gloves and other gizmos readily associated with virtual reality. But by expanding on the concept of VR, he hopes to draw TV viewers into a visual world that's unlike anything they've seen before.
It's going to kind of explode the mind a little bit and the eyeballs, I think, in the way it comes at you. And it's not just virtual reality. You know, we call this thing VR5, which is a level beyond where we are now. So we're immediately stepping beyond what virtual reality is capable of at the moment. Therefore, right alone, that makes it different.
How was your day, Sydney?
Terrific. Thanks. How's yours?
You have 0 messages.
The fact that the show is striving for something different is commendable, but Sacred Young is well aware that a plausible premise is key to telling a good sci-fi tale.
Well, I think today it's far-fetched. Tomorrow it won't be. You know, it's one of those things that right now, looking from our perspective, it seems like, wow, that's in the distant future. But when we look back in 20 or 30 or 40 years, we're going to say, huh, what an old-fashioned little Model T that show was, you know? Right now, it seems like Zoom, but we're going to get there.
So, for all you couch potatoes who want a peek at the future, VR5 premieres Friday, March 10th on the Fox Network.
This is Ross Watson from Hot Springs, Arkansas, calling to recommend a new video from Animego called Oh My Goddess. Anyone who loves Japanese animation will enjoy these videos. It tells the story of a college student who has his wishes come true and falls in love with a goddess. I urge you to check it out.
There are authors who have a knack for weaving tales of aliens and androids. Others excel at myth and magic. But Roger Zelazny is one of the few who have been hailed as a master of both science fiction and fantasy. This highly prolific writer began to plot a literary career as a youngster in Cleveland. And like any dedicated artist, he was prepared to pay his dues and collect a pile of rejection slips.
As luck would have it, I started writing in near the end of February of '62, and I sold my first story around the end of March of '62. And I took that as a good omen and kept writing science fiction.
Zelazny's first sci-fi novel, This Immortal, won him a Hugo Award a few years later. It's worth noting that the author never intended to limit his work to science fiction and fantasy. But once his writing style began to take shape, the advantages of genre storytelling couldn't be ignored.
For one thing, you write about characters of a sort you can't write about in general fiction. I mean, where else can you write about characters who are on par with, say, figures in the Iliad and the Odyssey and Greek tragedies or Elizabethan plays? I mean, figures who are larger than life. We want something like a god, and we don't want to be theological about it. We can bring in an alien or an artificial intelligence.
In his recent collaborations with author Bob Sheckley, Zelazny borrows legendary literary characters like Faust and Prince Charming for a great millennial contest between good and evil.
It's intended to be both, on the one hand, light, and on the other hand, to look at some ideas that we think stimulate thinking.
The authors have just published A Farce to be Reckoned With, the final chapter of the philosophical fantasy series. Zelazny obviously enjoys working with other writers, but it's unlikely the fruits of their labor will bear any resemblance to his solo projects.
You don't want to do the same sort of thing time after time where you get in a rut.
these books are very different than anything either one of us wrote, which I think is the justification for for doing a collaboration in the first place, to produce something neither one of you would have done on your own.
Among Zelazny's most popular works are what have come to be called the Amber novels. Readers have found the squabbling siblings in a superpowered royal family irresistible. These stories from the series Amber, the One Real World, have spawned computer and role-playing games, a fanzine, choose-your-own-adventure books, and the series has been optioned for a possible feature film.
I am a very visual writer. I describe everything in I think, fairly vivid detail. And anyone in a medium where this sort of representation was important would have an easy time, I think, transposing the work from prose into their medium, so that may well have something to do with it.
In the crowded field of science fiction and fantasy writing, Roger Zelazny's uncanny ability to turn out fresh and diverse material keeps him in a class by himself. When and where you can see the Special Effects 2 exhibit after this exciting extravaganza.
The Museum of Science and Industry will be here through March 19th. Then it goes on that national tour for 5 years at these locations. So Andy, do I have this right? You designed this exhibit with more than just children in mind.
Right. In fact, young adults get a lot out of this exhibit.
But if I don't want kids kind of hanging around me while I'm looking at the exhibit, I'm such a nasty man, when would be the best time to visit?
Between 3 and 5 in the afternoons.
Okay. Cool place. Good job.
Right.
I need one more special effect out of you, though.
Okay.
The two of us need to disappear, I mean right now.
Okay.
The mysteries of aliens, the magic of Houdini, the miracles of angels. Now the real stories, people, and events are explained in a thrilling new series, Mysteries, Magic, and Miracles, hosted by Patrick McNee. Coming up next.